What if the secret of transforming your life lies not in adding more to it, but in understanding the invisible forces that already control everything around you? Yesterday, I shared the first of, several chapters that I'm going to cover here of these profound teachings from Gurdjieff's cosmic masterpiece, many of you know as Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson. We explored how to break free from waking sleep, how exile and difficulty can become sources of wisdom, and how to work with universal forces rather than fighting them. And today I want to take you deeper into 3 more transformative principles that could change how you approach every challenge, every goal, every moment of your existence. I'm Mark Roach. Welcome back to Transcendent, my platform to help you be authentic, and if you like, to find your uniqueness and your essence. Now beware, my perspective may be uncomfortable. It was formed from a twisted journey across the world, crossing a wide spectrum of experiences, but it began in modest surroundings. It began from humble beginnings, raised in the Ozarks by hardworking parents and grandparents, with a touch of Native American heritage coupled with a deeply heartfelt view toward our fellow man. Yes, I was aspiring in my youth. I had highs and lows, and as most would define them in America, this channel is all about inspiring common people to find their power and place their uniqueness in their lives. Now, my life has been a research lab. I've studied mystics, healers, started a couple of oil companies, and walked away from a path to the NFL when I realized I couldn't conform to a materialistic and violent lifestyle. I've raised well over $8 billion for startups. I've raised 8 kids. I've been in the middle of $10 billion worth of transactions and led 5,000 to 10,000 professionals in geology and engineering around the world. I've been mentored in business and athletics by rich and famous people. Now, you may ask, why am I here talking about Gurdjieff? Well, I've had some interesting things happen to me in my life, things that really snuck up on me, and my inner life has been a powerful force fueling my decisions and my journey throughout life. So I'm hoping to use this medium to hopefully ease the way for others who also deal with some things that I had to deal with. Sometimes it's called complex PTSD. And sometimes people just feel like they have a calling and they're different and they're looking for some guidance or just a fellow traveler that can help them pursue their uniqueness. Or maybe you've got a friend who's on that path or a loved one, and you're reaching out to try to find and understand more about how you might be able to support them. Well, the 4th chapter of Gurdjieff's mammoth book, which I think is around 1,200 pages, is about understanding the law of falling. And in this 4th chapter of the tale, Beelzebub explains how one of the most fundamental principles governing all existence, the law of falling, how every part of the universe, he tells his grandson in this chapter, seeks its nearest stability. Motion itself isn't random, but it follows precise, universal laws that determine how everything moves, from the tiniest particle to the grandest celestial body. Now, this might sound abstract until you realize it's describing something that you experience in every moment of your life. When Newton formulated his law of universal gravitation, he discovered that every particle in the universe attracts every other particle with a force proportional to their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Yeah, I thought I left my engineering stuff on the table, but anyway, what appears as falling is actually the manifestation of deeper attractive forces that govern the entire cosmos. And here is where Gurdjieff's insight becomes revolutionary. The same law that governs physical motion also governs psychological and spiritual development. Your thoughts naturally fall toward familiar patterns. Your emotions naturally fall toward habitual reactions. Your behavior naturally falls toward whatever provides the most psychological stability, even if that stability is actually destructive. Now think about it. You think about your own life. How many times have you tried to change a habit only to find yourself falling back into old patterns? How many times have you attempted to adopt a new mindset only to discover your thinking gravitating toward familiar worries and concerns? This isn't failure or weakness. This is the law of falling operating in your inner world just as precisely as it operates in physics. Modern psychology validates this principle through concepts like homeostasis and set points. Your brain has regulatory systems that try to maintain familiar states of mood. Change creates instability, and your psychological system naturally falls back toward whatever feels most stable, even if it's making you miserable. But understanding this law gives you tremendous power. Just as engineers work with gravity rather than fighting it, you can learn to work with your own psychological gravity. Instead of trying to force dramatic changes that your system is going to resist, you can make small, gradual shifts that allow your natural stability seeking tendencies to work for you rather than against you. When you understand that falling toward familiar patterns is natural and inevitable, you stop fighting yourself and you start designing better patterns to fall toward. You create new psychological attractors, new centers of stability that will naturally draw your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in healthier directions. Now, the fifth teaching, creating sustainable systems, is about, this chapter introduces us to the system of Archangel Heraton, as it's called in the book, a cosmic engineering marvel that enables spaceships to traverse the universe efficiently and safely. Now, this propulsion system works not by fighting against universal laws, but by aligning perfectly with them. The device can maintain motion seemingly indefinitely because it operates in harmony with the fundamental principles that structure reality itself. This is the difference between forced motion and natural motion. Forced motion requires constant energy input, and it eventually burns out. Natural motion works with existing forces and can continue indefinitely with minimal maintenance. The system of Archangel Heraton represents what happens when technological innovation aligns with cosmic law rather than trying to override it. In your daily life, you probably experience both types of systems. Think about the difference between a workout routine that you force on yourself to do versus physical activity that you genuinely enjoy. The forced routine requires constant willpower and it eventually fails. The enjoyable activity becomes self-sustaining because it aligns with your natural preferences and energy patterns. The same principle applies to your career, relationships, creative projects, and your personal development. Systems that work with your natural tendencies, with your spirit and essence, some might say, and the larger forces in your environment operate most effortlessly once they're properly established. Systems that fight against these forces require enormous energy and often collapse under their own strain. Modern science recognizes this principle in concepts like flow states, where peak performance emerges when your skills align perfectly with the challenges at hand and your effort feels effortless. Athletes describe this as being in the zone. Musicians talk about when the music just plays itself. Writers experience words flowing onto the page without conscious effort. But creating sustainable systems requires deep knowledge of the laws that govern both your inner nature and your external environment. Just as the system of Archangel Hariton required profound understanding of cosmic principles, building sustainable life systems requires understanding of your own psychological patterns, energy cycles, motivation structures, and the social and economic forces that surround you. Most people try to create change through sheer force of will, like trying to build a perpetual motion machine. They create elaborate goals and detailed plans that ignore their natural energy patterns and the larger forces at work in their lives. These systems inevitably fail because they're fighting against fundamental laws rather than working with them. The secret is to design systems that make the right choices easier and the wrong ones harder. Instead of relying on discipline to overcome bad habits, you change your environment so that good habits become the natural, effortless choice. Instead of forcing yourself to do work you hate, you gradually shift toward work that energizes you and aligns with your deeper purposes. Now, the sixth teaching is recognize impossible dreams. The sixth chapter tells a cautionary tale about human obsession with perpetual motion machines. Beelzebub describes visiting towns where people had become completely consumed with inventing devices that would run endlessly without any external energy input. These inventors sacrificed their well-being, neglected their responsibilities, and often suffered psychological breakdowns in pursuit of something that violates fundamental laws of physics. The fascinating thing about the perpetual motion obsession is that it reveals something profound about human psychology. We're naturally drawn to the fantasy of getting something for nothing, of creating systems that generate infinite results from finite effort. This tendency shows up everywhere in modern life, from get-rich schemes to fad diets that promise effortless transformation to productivity systems that claim to eliminate all difficulty from achievement. The search for perpetual motion machines reached its peak during periods of rapid technological advancement, when people became convinced that the old limitations no longer applied. Sound familiar? We're living through exactly such a period today. People are obsessed with life hacks, productivity shortcuts, passive income streams, and systems that promise to automate success. But Gurdjieff understood something crucial that most modern self-improvement approaches miss entirely. Some laws are truly universal and cannot be circumvented through cleverness or technology. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. This means that any output requires corresponding input. There are no exceptions. The same principle applies to consciousness, relationships, skills, and genuine achievement. You cannot get conscious development without conscious effort. You cannot get deep relationships without emotional investment. You cannot develop mastery without sustained practice. You cannot achieve meaningful success without providing real value to others. Modern culture feeds us a constant stream of perpetual motion fantasies. Social media influencers promise you that you can build $1 million business working 4 hours a week. Dating coaches claim that simple tricks will give you effortless attraction. Spiritual teachers suggest that the right meditation technique will eliminate your problems permanently. And I won't go into medicine and pharmaceuticals, but these promises appeal to the perpetual motion part of your brain, the part that wants maximum results with minimum efforts. But they lead to the same psychological breakdown that Beelzebub observed in the perpetual motion inventors. People exhaust themselves chasing impossible dreams instead of learning to work skillfully with the laws that actually govern human development. The anecdote is developing what Gurdjieff called being part doggle duty, which roughly translates to conscious labor. This means understanding that genuine transformation requires sustained effort applied intelligently over time. It means accepting that there are no shortcuts to the things that matter most. It means finding satisfaction in the work itself rather than constantly seeking ways to avoid or to minimize work. So to bring it all together here and working with reality here, these three teachings from these chapters 4 through 6 of Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson reveal a profound truth about human potential. Most of our suffering does not come from external circumstances, but from our own refusal to work with the laws that govern both inner and outer reality. We fight gravity instead of learning to fly. We resist our psychological patterns instead of understanding how to redirect them. We chase perpetual motion fantasies instead of building sustainable systems. The modern world amplifies these problems exponentially. We're surrounded by advertising that promises effortless transformation. We're bombarded with success stories that hide the years of preparation behind overnight breakthroughs. We have access to technologies that make some things so easy that we expect everything to be easy. But the deepest laws haven't changed. Consciousness still requires conscious effort. Skill still requires practice. Relationships still require emotional investment. Physical health still requires movement and nutrition. Mental clarity still requires discipline and attention training. The good news is that when you align with these laws instead of fighting them, life becomes dramatically easier and more satisfying. You stop wasting enormous amounts of energy on futile resistance and start channeling that energy toward genuine development. Start by observing your own psychological law of falling. Notice the patterns in your thoughts, in your emotions, and your behaviors naturally, and watch your behavior is naturally falling toward. Instead of judging these patterns as good or bad, study them with the same scientific curiosity that Newton had for physical motion. What are the forces that pull you in a certain direction? What are your natural stability points? Then instead of fighting those patterns, begin to create better ones. Design your environment, your schedule, and your social connections so that healthy choices become the path of least resistance. Create new stability points that naturally attract your attention and your energy toward growth rather than stagnation or destruction. Learn to distinguish between forced and natural motion in every area of your life. Where are you pushing against these fundamental laws instead of working with them? Where are you trying to create perpetual motion instead of sustainable systems? Where are you seeking shortcuts instead of embracing conscious labor? Most importantly, develop deep appreciation for the work itself. The perpetual motion seekers, they suffered because they were focused entirely on results or outcomes, and they saw effort as something that needed to be eliminated. But conscious labor, when approached with the right understanding, becomes its own reward. The practice becomes the path, the work becomes the teacher. Let's talk about the choice of conscious effort. Gurdjieff taught that human beings have the potential for conscious evolution, but it requires understanding and working with the laws that govern development rather than trying to circumvent them. This isn't limitation, it's liberation. When you stop fighting reality and start dancing with it, you discover powers and possibilities that you never imagined. Your thoughts can be trained to fall toward wisdom rather than worry. Your emotions can be educated to respond appropriately rather than reactively. Your behaviors can be organized to serve your deepest purposes rather than immediate impulse. This requires the kind of conscious labor that most people are unwilling to embrace or don't even have the chance to consider embracing. The question isn't whether you have the time or energy for this work. The question is whether you're willing to stop wasting time and energy on perpetual motion fantasies and start investing in the only kind of development that actually works. The question is whether you're ready to embrace the satisfaction that comes from aligning with the cosmic laws rather than fighting against them. The universe is already organized according to profound intelligence and perfect order. Your job isn't to improve the universe. Your job is to understand your place in it and fulfill that place consciously rather than mechanically. This is the work of becoming fully human rather than remaining a sophisticated animal or a robot. The tools are available, the laws are discoverable, the support exists for those willing to seek it. But like the system of Archangel Hariton, genuine development requires deep knowledge of the principles involved and the sustained effort to implement them correctly. Are you ready to stop chasing perpetual motion fantasies and start building systems that actually work? Are you ready to embrace the law of falling and create better patterns to fall toward? Are you ready to discover what becomes possible when you align your efforts with the fundamental forces that govern all existence? The choice is yours, but the laws are universal. Choose wisely. I'm Mark Roach, wishing you all the best.